In today's video, I'm going to be talking about feeling critiqued or feeling as if you're being criticized, and some of the steps we can take in order to deal with this particular situation. Oftentimes what can happen is that something is said to us, and what we feel as a result of that particular statement is something far deeper and bigger than actually what's happening in this particular situation or specific situation. So an example which I would give to this is, if I take something from my own life, is let's say my partner comes in and she notices something like she notices that the bin bags haven't been taken out or something like that, or she notices that some aspect of the room is not quite correct and she mentions it and she just points it out. It could be that, why is this thing here and why haven't you sort of resolved it? It could just be that. So that's a mild criticism here. So how do I deal with that particular situation? Now, generally what I've experienced is that this small thing, which I've noticed may occur within me, the actual kind of weight which I feel subsequently is so much larger than that which is warranted by this specific situation. I mean, if you're a secure person, you're quite calm, you probably just look at that particular situation, you may actually give a reason, or you may smile, or you may just take it quite easily. But if you're like me, or just like most people, I assume what you'd do is you'd actually take that a bit more personally, and you'd feel actually hurt, and you feel like an aspect of you has been critiqued. You'd think, why is this person pointing this aspect of my life out to me? Because this feels horrible, this is offensive to me, I don't like it, so on and so forth. So now, as that particular thing is happening, what's generally happening to us in the background or psychologically is that a statement is said and we feel hit as a result of hearing that particular thing, and we feel a bit attacked. And I think in that particular moment, the kind of response which we're experiencing is far larger than that which is actually warranted by this particular situation. So what happens to me generally when I hear something like that is that a particular narrative which I have about myself, which is not very positive, is actually triggered in that particular moment. So I may have a narrative, so I'm just talking about myself, and you may have different narratives. I have narratives surrounding the fact that I'm not very practical, so I don't know how to actually arrange things in a practical, coherent manner, and because I don't have this particular ability, the moment someone even hints at that, I get triggered and I get reactive, and I take offense. Now, the offense which I'm taking is the offense which I'm taking, and that seems to be the reaction which is happening immediately. But actually, if I actually slow that down, something deeper is happening. So when someone points something out to me, about me, which is, why haven't the bin bags been taken out? Why hasn't this been done? What's happening is that the moment they do that, I feel a sense of pressure and I feel a bit of being hit. If I just slow down the reactionary process, I feel that something's pointed me, it's triggered me. And in the triggering process, what's happening in slow motion is I feel small, I feel belittled, I feel weak, vulnerable, sad, fragile, I think is the kind of term which I would use. So I'm feeling that sense, and because that sense is so unpleasant to experience immediately, and it's bringing back all sorts of other previous experiences in my life where I actually felt this particular way, I don't really want to face that. So what I do is, rather than feel that, I kind of get up and react, and I'm like, and I may say something explicitly back to them, which is unpleasant, or if I don't say something back, I keep my mouth shut, but inside there may be a well of reactionary or reactivity which may start happening, and I start welling in it. And it could be a kind of rage or anger which I feel, or resistance which I feel when I've actually heard this person say this thing to me. So when this thing is happening, what I've just tried to do within this first thing, rather than sort of give a tip or something, is just explain what's happening to us as we're feeling critiqued. And I've done that by actually giving you my own example for when I feel I've been criticized for something. What you may notice in this second stage, because we've slowed it down, is the thoughts which you're having about that particular person or about that particular situation are very random. They don't have a sense of coherency about them. they are quite angry and reactive, and there's a flood of thoughts which you might be experiencing. Some of those thoughts may be to do with this person in terms of the past, or some of those thoughts may be to do with other similar situations which you've been in, and it's just a flurry of random thoughts and they're just occurring. And there's no sense of coherent narrative, there's no sense of rationality there, or calm, or peace, or accuracy. It's a lot of just flurry of thoughts which you're experiencing. And these flurry of thoughts you might have, I'm not saying for a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you may be stuck in this flurry of thoughts for a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, who knows how long it lasts. For me, it can often be as much as a half a day where I'm just stuck in this flurry of thoughts. So it's not just something which just comes and goes. The small feeling happens, and then there's this big sense of flurry of thoughts which starts to happen, and it's very, very unpleasant to experience, you know. So this is what's happening in the second stage. You're getting all sorts of thoughts. Some of them are to do with this person and what they did in the past, or some of them to do with what happened to you in the past, and all of this is actually happening, and you don't know how to deal with it in that moment. Or your sense of calm, peace, your sense of being awake and present, everything is gone, and you're just in this hellish mode of being, you know. And it can last for as long as a couple of days to a week, to even much longer, if the thing which has occurred is actually hit you in a even deeper way than that. So that's what's happening in the second stage. And I'm highlighting all of these stages because I think it's really important to be mindful of these things as it's occurring. Because when you know what's going to happen to you or what's happening to you, and someone's kind of pointed it out, it's easier to actually track it. And the moment you can track it, somehow it doesn't have that much power over you then, because you know what's actually happening. You know all the process as it's occurring. So that's the second stage in terms of what happens to us. There's this reactivity. And that's that basically, and then eventually we kind of calm down, and it's a matter of then being probed again, and then the whole thing begins again. And often we can get into fights, or if we don't like fighting, if we're a more calmer person, then what we may actually end up doing is we just kind of bottle it and we don't say anything, but inside we're kind of bitter and resentful, and may come out in indirect ways which are a bit more passive aggressive rather than overtly aggressive. But the point is that in both cases we are feeling incredibly harmed, and the person who we think has actually caused us harm is also being targeted, either through kind of passive aggressive action or overtly aggressive action. And it's just very unpleasant. There's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of tension, and we don't really know how to cope with that situation. And most of the time we feel so hurt that we actually think we're completely justified in behaving towards this person the way we have, and experiencing what we're experiencing. So it's not great. It's not a great situation to be in. So this is what's actually happening. So what can we do in order to overcome this feeling, you know? Now, the first thing which we can do, I think from my perspective, is actually to know what's happening, like I've said. The second thing I think which we can do is, rather than react immediately, allow yourself to feel small for a bit. It's so hard to do that, because the moment something happens, something hits us, we feel small. But we don't want to feel small. We don't want to actually just let that feeling settle and sink into us. Before it sinks in, because it's so unpleasant, because we resist it so much, we'd much rather just immediately overreact and either go into some kind of fighting mode or some kind of overthinking, hating mode, or whatever it is, reactivity mode. But because we don't want to feel small, because we don't like feeling small, because before, when we felt small, it was horrible and it hurt and we didn't like it, so we're not going to do it again. But my point is that allow yourself to feel small. Just allow yourself to feel small. Allow yourself to feel that sense of smallness as it's happening within you, rather than to immediately go and react, you know. So that's the second thing. It sounds counterintuitive, but just allow yourself to feel that. Let it sink. Let it sink in. Let it just be. And what you may notice is when you just let it be and let it sink in, even though it's very difficult to do that, it may just go through you. It may not actually stick. Because I think when it sticks is when we resist. When we resist that feeling, that's when it lodges, and that's when the reactivity starts happening. So if you just allow yourself to feel that, it will just sink and it will just wash through you. Seriously, just try it and see what you feel. That's the second thing you can do. The third thing which I'm just gonna say now, is there's an additional thing you can do, and this is really important as well, is that take some action. Let it settle, let it move through you. The third thing which you can do is take some action, and take beautiful action. Don't take reactive action where you're like stuck in that, or you're sort of fighting against it. When you allow it to move through you, it will be calm, it will be peaceful, you feel more present, alert and awake, and then take some action in a response to it, you know, so you don't feel disempowered by it. And what I'm saying here is taking any kind of action, loving action, happy action, which gives you a sense of power and control, but also a deep sense of satisfaction about where you are in terms of your life and where you are in terms of your general well-being and happiness. So for example, if you feel that someone's critiqued you and you feel that your character has been attacked and you're blowing up in your head, let it settle and then do something beautiful afterwards. Produce something, make something, draw something, go and share a beautiful experience with someone you know and care for and love. Plan something majestic and interesting in your life. Always create or do something which allows you or gives you the feeling that you're bringing a deeper sense of love and care and compassion into the world, whether that's just in your life or in the lives of other people who are around you and who you care for, or it could be just complete strangers. But transmute what you've actually experienced in this particular moment, which is essentially being triggered by this particular situation or person, and maybe there's an element of past pain and suffering which is coming up as well. Transmute all of that into something which is loving and caring and beautiful and generous. Take some action and do that. Spread some element of love or peace or joy or happiness into the world when you go through these experiences, because I think that's the ultimate redemption, you know. You are basically taking something in, you're experiencing something, you're allowing it to be there, and then you're kind of transmuting that and taking action which is compassionate and beautiful and caring and considerate. Do something for someone else which is generous and caring. Do something for yourself which is generous and caring. And I think you'll notice that if you start taking these steps, then your ability to kind of deal with criticism and cope with criticism is going to be so much better. And you'll find that in due time you just be able to laugh it off, and you won't be hurt, and you won't feel like you're going in these cycles of pain and suffering, which can be so horrible, and where we can just feel so helpless all the time, you know. So that's the video today. It's been a bit longer, but this is just a topic which seems to be quite important, I guess, and so I hope you found this useful, and I will see you guys next time.